Hi, I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Ben.
And together we are 15 Degrees North.
Today we're going to show you the sights and sounds of Bulgaria.
Bulgaria is a country in southern Europe that, despite its relatively large size, has only a population of 7 million.
Its capital is Sofia, an ancient city dating back nearly 10,000 years, which was known as Serdica in antiquity.
Although not officially a capital until Bulgaria first became independent in 1878, it had always been an important city, which now has a population of over 1.5 million, making it the 13th largest city in the European Union.
The country spent much of the 20th century under communist rule, but unlike neighbouring Romania, this was a lighter version of socialism, so much so that when the government fell following the 1989 revolution, the new government that they elected was the Communist Party.
Well, at least they got to choose it for themselves.
Sofia has been described as the triangle of religious tolerance because at its centre sits a square surrounded by religious buildings of multiple faiths.
There's a church, a mosque, and a synagogue, all within spitting distance of each other, indicating how well these religions have coexisted in this region for centuries.
Although, when Bulgaria declared independence from the Ottoman Empire, they did burn most of the mosques, causing a mass exodus of Muslims overnight.
And the Bulgarians also haven't been afraid to attack their neighbours, having fought in 2 Balkan wars in the early 20th century because they wanted more land.
So the Bulgarians historically have been neither tolerant nor peaceful.
Well, history is exactly that, history. Nowadays, they are a thriving and developing country who enjoys all the benefits of living in the EU.
Undoubtedly, the most famous building in Sofia is the St. Alexander Nevsky Cathedral, which is one of the largest Christian churches in the world.
Towering over the city, it was built at the end of the 19th century, and when it was finished, it became the largest Eastern Orthodox cathedral in the world.
Built to honour the Russian soldiers lost in the Russo-Turkish War, which led directly to Bulgaria's independence, the church houses relics that belong to its namesake, St. Alexander Nevsky, who was a prince of the Kievan Rus, who saved the people of Eastern Europe from being slaughtered by Genghis Khan's Golden Horde.
Well, not too much anyway, just a little bit of a slaughtering.
Less slaughtering than elsewhere.
Thanks, Alexander Nevsky.
What were your expectations of Sofia?
Little, pretty rundown, grey Eastern European capital, not great, yeah.
And what's the reality of it?
Completely different. Lovely, colourful, proper Southern European capital. Love it.
So does the reality meet or exceed your
It
expectations?
exceeds my expectation. Na zdrowie.
Sofia sits at the base of Mount Vitosha, which rises to a height of 2,300 meters above the city.
Bulgaria is a very mountainous country, which means that its food is based more on the animals it could kill over the crops it could grow.
Which means that we got to feast on a meat banquet every single night.
So much meat.
Sofia is quite a small city, so after 2 nights there, we hopped in a car and headed out on a road trip for 3 days around the Bulgarian countryside.
And like most of Eastern Europe, you'll find that its monasteries are its most prestigious monuments.
Some of these are rugged and remote, like this one at Glogin, and others are huge and ornate. We'll show you some of those later.
But to get to this one, we travelled up a potholed mountain road on the side of a precipice for 20 kilometers. Thank God we bought car insurance.
After that, we headed to the ancient capital of the Bulgarian Empire, Veliko Tarnovo.
Yes, I know we said earlier that Bulgaria has only existed since the 19th century, but before the Ottomans came along, Bulgaria actually had quite a large empire.
Although the land historically known as Bulgaria was actually in Ukraine.
Come again?
Well, the Bulgar people came from Central Asia and conquered the area now known as Ukraine. Then they conquered the land now known as Romania, Bulgaria, and most of the former Yugoslav states, lost the Ukrainian land, and then established their own empire in their new lands in the Balkans.
And Veliko Tarnovo became their capital.
Veliko Tarnovo became known as the City of the Tsars because it was the home to the Asen dynasty, who ruled over the region until they were conquered by the Ottomans.
The city is perched on several hills that sit in between sharp bends in the Yantra River.
With multiple citadels on adjacent hills, this easily defendable city housed palaces and churches, but fell into disrepair when the city lost its status.
Today, the ruins are still pretty impressive, and the city is a gorgeous medieval settlement in a sharp contrast to the neoclassical architecture in Sofia.
What can I do for you?
I'd like you to behead someone for me. Is that something you could do?
Yes. Who?
Mr. Boris Johnson.
Okay. Let me think about that. What is your price?
Oh, will you do it for a fiver?
Yes.
Next, we headed to what I think is the coolest landmark in all of Bulgaria.
But it's also the landmark that Bulgaria seems to want you to forget exists.
So we've been to a lot of Eastern European countries lately and we've seen lots of communist architecture, but what do you think about this one?
This is probably the most communist Eastern Bloc socialist architecture-y thing we've ever actually seen. I mean, just look at it, it's crazy.
The Buzluzha Monument was built by the communist government at the summit of Buzludzha Mountain and opened in 1981.
It marks the spot where the Bulgarian Communist Party was formed in 1891, and the construction was a costly and lengthy process, as they had to literally blow the top off the mountain with TNT to make it level enough for the building.
The interiors feature vast mosaics that depict the history of socialism in Bulgaria, but the building was only open to the public for 8 years, closing its doors in 1989 following the fall of communism.
Since then, the building has fallen into disrepair and it is strictly forbidden to enter.
We thought we might be able to sneak inside, but the building is firmly chained up and there's a policeman permanently guarding the site.
Recognised as one of the most at-risk sites in Europe, the building needs significant renovation and needs a lot of money just to preserve it.
Next, Buzluzha Monastery.
Dating from the 11th century, it was temporarily damaged by the Turks, but restored in the 15th century.
And apart from this brief hiatus, the monastery has been in constant use for millennia.
Bulgaria's most impressive buildings to visit are definitely its monasteries. They are stunning.
Plovdiv is our next stop, which was the European Capital of Culture in 2019, and you can really tell, because the city is buzzing with culture and hospitality.
Bulgaria's second city, it was known as Philippopolis in ancient times and was the biggest city in the Roman province of Thrace.
Across the city are Roman remains, including a section of its chariot stadium,
And its enormous theatre.
Constructed in the 1st century AD, the theatre is still used for shows and concerts today.
Plovdiv Old Town is also one of the best preserved in the Balkans.
With timber houses built in the Bulgarian Renaissance style, these were the homes of wealthy merchants and businessmen.
Many of them have been restored and maintained, and they were centuries ago, and you can visit their interiors by buying a single ticket that will grant you access to them all.
No, I'm not saying that I'm all fancy and la-di-da, but I reckon I could quite happily live in houses like these.
Well, if you lived in houses like these, you really would be fancy and la-di-da.
Okay, well, that's a price that I'm willing to pay. Back in the countryside, and we made the short hike to find Stobs Pyramids.
These thin spires of rock are known as hoodoos and are carved from the mountainside by erosion and are similar to those found in Bryce Canyon, Utah. I really like them.
Hoodoo? You do?
I do like them.
You do like the hoodoo?
I do. Do you?
Yes, do.
Well, that's not even a word. How will they know where to go now? Only joking.
Our final stop is Bulgaria's most famous monument of all.
The Rila Monastery is nestled deep in the mountain of the Rila National Park, about 2 hours south of Sofia.
Over 1,000 meters in elevation, this ornate Orthodox monastery takes its name from Saint John of Rila, a hermit who lived on this spot in the 9th century and reportedly performed many miracles.
After his death, this spot became a place of pilgrimage, and the monastery was built to house its visitors.
Then, Bulgarian Tsars invested heavily in the building, recognizing its religious significance.
Over the centuries, it was damaged and reconstructed numerous times before its most recent incarnation, following a fire in the 19th century, was finished in 1862 and featured remarkably honored facades and stunning frescoes both inside and out.
In fact, it's considered a masterpiece. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site and is probably the most significant Christian building on the entire Balkan Peninsula.
It's easily accessed by road, but it is the one spot in Bulgaria we visited that felt somewhat overrun with tourists.
However, like Venice or the Eiffel Tower, you have to see past the hordes of visitors because this building really is quite remarkable.
We absolutely loved Bulgaria, falling in love with its ancient cities and mountainous landscape.
It might be sparsely populated, but it has a lot to offer, and we highly recommend a visit.
Thanks for watching,
Be sure to like, share and subscribe.
and follow us on Instagram at 15 Degrees North.
Make sure to tune in to our next video to see where in the world we end up next.
See ya!
Bye!